What do you miss about the pandemic? Empty streets. I had to drive into my office in Manhattan one day in April 2020 because I had an issue with my work laptop. 70 miles per hour through the Holland Tunnel, and I parked on the street in front of the building. Doubt anyone will experience that again. I remember driving through the main boulevard of my city the night after the enforced lockdown went into effect. It was so eerie not seeing a single car on the street. It looked like a movie set for a post-apocalyptic zombie flick. I concur with this, but I'll one-up you. Because of the empty streets, I miss how the air started to smell good again. And how quiet it was without all that traffic. The pace of life almost felt like how life should be. Less traffic, less crowded streets, less noise, more time to appreciate people at home. Some jobs could commute. Even people who had a variety of opinions on the pandemic details seemed to have a community of sorts within their said beliefs. It just feels modern society is chaotic for no good reason, and the pandemic slowed things down for a short minute. It really showed the fakeness of modern life. Waking up and going into the office was totally unnecessary. Yet this single action is how most people define their adult life. I tried to explain this to my mother yesterday. Modern life does not feel good. Humans are not designed to wake up and immediately throw ourselves into tasks that accomplish nothing more than basic survival to allow us to continue to work. Humans are meant to be creators, problem solvers. We're meant to experience all our wonderful planet has to offer, yet 99% of the population will spend almost every waking moment slaving away, some quite literally. My family has property that is so rural it is basically traveling in time back 80 years. It does have electricity and a landline, but that is it. On a well, no TV, no internet, and no cell unless you use satellite. Wood-burning stuff and a half-acre vegetable garden. Nearest neighbor requires driving to get to, and you could go half a day without seeing a car. Every day is a 14-hour day. From first getting up, it is work. Build a fire to get heat going, cook food since nothing is pre-packed or processed, boil water to drink. Everything just to survive is work. And it is amazingly rewarding and relaxing even though you are always busy. You work and your needs are aligned so it doesn't feel like a burden. I work more there than I do normally, and it is tremendously more peaceful. You quickly realize how little of modern society matters. Fuck social media. Neighbor coming over to chat over a cup of coffee and homemade bread you spent 3 hours making and then helping pick vegetables and cut firewood is where it is at. The quiet. In the big city where I live there are various lakes, ponds around, and during the pandemic I could hear the frogs chirping like crazy in the evenings instead of traffic. I bet that was otherworldly feeling. It's really sad how that could be described as otherworldly. It should be this worldly. So many people talking about the big city closing down, and all the nature they could finally hear and see. The crowding was gone. The air clean. I'm so glad I left that all behind as a kid. The best thing my parents ever did was move us to small town USA in the Ozark Mountains. It's beautiful all the time, not crowded, not noisy. 2 of my siblings moved back to the big city as adults. They hated it 24/7 in our small town. They enjoy a visit but they couldn't live here again. I feel the same when I visit them. I feel plenty of people learned a thing or two about where they want to be. So many have asked, Springfield, Missouri area. Not feeling bad for sitting in my apartment all day and night. No FOMO. True, the pandemic was the golden age of guilt-free laziness. Too lazy to go grocery shopping and just having them delivered to my porch. Went from lazy and antisocial to doing my civic duty. Being 4 years younger. Yup, mid-20s just flew away. I feel really bad for the teenagers. They went in as kids and came out adults with little sense of direction. I've said it then and I'll say it now, young people, particularly ages 13 to 27-ish, had it the absolute hardest. Those are years that are unique and you simply cannot get back, whereas someone in their 40s who aged 2 years didn't really miss out on life events that cannot still be done. For young people, many missed their prom, graduation, myself included, as well as just general social events that can be the base of core memorizing and life-building experiences. But I'd narrow it down further and say ages 16 to 22 got the most fucked. Those best years were wasted. Our planet Earth getting a break for the first time in a long time. In BC, we had whales return to regions they had left long ago, and births went up. Venetian canals ran with visibly clear water. Dolphins around the world went up rivers, estuaries, and waterways they hadn't visited in decades. Was eye-opening. The first time I've ever seen the sky so clear in my city, it was beautiful. Clean supermarket baskets. Actually, just clean stuff in general. The moment it was no longer mandated, everything went back to being filthy. You would think there would be minimum standards of hygiene in places that sell produce. I mean, I'm pretty sure a corner grocer would get in trouble for having baskets as gross as Woolworth's baskets always are. I was in food service during the pandemic. It was hilarious to see how all of a sudden management took sick workers seriously. Didn't have to be COVID, people with colds or the flu all of a sudden were given time off, no questions asked. If you have ever worked food service, it's alarming the amount of sick people around your food. What's even funnier is I personally saw the rise and fall of that behavior. It took about 18 months for management to go back to, "You're sick? Well, we need you be here anyways." This was my first thought too. It was great to be able to call out when sick and not be guilt-tripped, begged, shamed, and argued with to come in anyway. Being sick and taking time to get better before working is communism, though. Lack of traffic was nice. Post-pandemic effect was brutal though. Not sure if we had gotten used to the light traffic or that many people forgot how to drive. People keeping their fucking distance. It took a bit, but now people are right back to hovering over your shoulder in line. Loved it. Why the fuck does people breathing down your neck in lines? It doesn't make it going any faster. I hate grocery shopping once again. Not having to talk to people. Having time to do extra stuff around the house. Not just not having to talk to people, but I kind of enjoyed the act of intentionally avoiding people. Like walking on the trail near our house. Usually pretty crowded before COVID. During the lockdowns, it was pretty sparse, but as a big outdoor area, there were still people. But when you were approaching someone on the trail, they would noticeably move to the side or go in a different direction. I always thought it was hilarious and enjoyable. I like to think it was some kind of special treatment, like I would get as a celebrity or dignitary of some sort. Make way! Make way! My kids and I are approaching your immediate vicinity. Or in the early days when people were still having events. It was so easy to just say, "Nah, you know, virus and all," and just avoid people for any reason at all. I really enjoyed grocery shopping and being out at school drop-off and other errands around town. I generally hate those situations, because I inevitably run into someone I know, or should know, but I'm really bad at recognizing people. Even close acquaintances, if it's out of usual context. But when everyone is wearing a mask, I either don't get recognized and approach myself, or I have an easy excuse for why I didn't acknowledge you back there in the cereal aisle. What a time for hermits and introverts to be alive. I miss nothing. Working for the ambulance, there was so much stress for such a long time. Didn't see family for such a long time. Lots of people immensely sick didn't receive the treatment they needed because of the pandemic. I was alone in the flat for such a long time. It fucking sucked. I miss my dead family members. This needs to be higher. There were two different pandemics. The privileged one where you were just stir crazy and baking banana bread and going on walks, and the one where you were essential or lost loved ones. I'm sorry for your loss. People are so privileged and they don't even know it. Not everyone views the world so black and white. Some of us were essential workers and lost loved ones, but can still appreciate the few benefits provided from the unfortunate pandemic. Grieving a loved one is never easy, especially if you still have to work, but if you weren't an essential worker, it was more comfortable to grieve while being able to work at home. Some elderly people who unfortunately have to work in order to pay for their meds were able to take some much-needed time off due to the stimulus checks. Many families were able to spend more time together than they ever will again. Nothing. I was an essential worker, mail carrier, and worked my ass off. No extra pay there. I live in Yosemite National Park. No visitors were allowed in during the initial lockdown, so it was only the employees who lived in the park that got to enjoy spring that year. No one on the mist trail on a fine spring day in May. No cars at Tunnel View for sunrise. No Gumbies at Swan Slab. No careless influencers trampling the meadows. The birds were loud, the bears were comfortable, The dogwood blooms didn't get picked and ruined. I miss having the valley to myself. It's so selfish. But man, what an experience. Working from home. I usually had Fridays remote before COVID, and about 40% of the company was full remote already. We went home one weekend in March and never went back. I've been fully remote since and moved to a bigger city. Best thing in my career so far, lol. Common courtesy if people were ill. People staying home or masking up when sick. Now we're back to disgustingly ill people hacking and coughing all over with zero regard for others. It's gross. My dog, Bjorn, he died January 2021, but I got to spend every day of 2020 at home with him. Getting paid to stay home and do, essentially, nothing. Spending tons of time with my kids. Also, my kids loved that the school gave us school food for them to eat at home, so I miss them being excited for us to go pick up the weekly school food. What do you miss about the pandemic? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.